Hello everybody, my name's Vendetta, and today you are watching my early game player guide for any new players in Tower Defense X. So you heard that right, if you are between the levels of 1 and 30, there should be something here for you, as I'm going to talk about some of the game's very big core mechanics. I'm going to do some very simple explaining, and overall just give some little tips, tricks, and things you should maybe invest in or look into just to get a hold of the game, get a little bit of a better understanding, and help you progress a little bit easier. So yeah, like I said, this is for new players, so if you're higher than level 30, these tips are probably going to be things you already know, and I mean, you won't even need to watch this video, but hang on, because I'm also making a video for people who are higher than level 30, but not quite endgame, so maybe 30 to 70, and then I'm also making another guide after that for endgame players who are level 70 plus. So stay tuned for those, because there's going to be a video that, no matter what, has some tips for you. But for now, let's try and keep this short. We're going to jump into some very simple things. I'm going to first go over the lobby and just some general knowledge you should have about it, and then we'll talk about some recommendations I have afterwards as well. So this is the lobby in Tower Defense X, but I'm more so talking about the UI. Let's look at the UI here. So at the bottom of your screen, you have three different things you can see. This is your gold amount, just shows how much gold you have, your crystal amount, which displays how many crystals you have, and your 6 tower slots. You only have 6 slots, so make sure you organize your tower team well. Looking on the left side of the screen here, we have 4 very important buttons here. This play button opens this screen here, which is the party system. You're going to use this in order to either matchmake up here with other players if you want to have a full squad, or you can use the party system here to play with only you or just your friends if you want to do that. You can also change which mode you play in here. You have all the 6 core modes in here, and you also have your events just up here, which we'll talk about these a little bit later. Moving on to these 2 buttons here, you've got the shop and this button with the bag on it. These buttons are going to be where you purchase your new towers, skin crates, power-ups, all that kind of good stuff. And this button with the bag is going to be where you equip all of that stuff. So same sort of layout for both, but one is where you buy them, the other is where you equip it. And last but not least, this button right here is the Battle Pass menu. You don't have to worry about this too much, because all this is just some cosmetics and some consumables like gold and power-ups. So there's not much here in terms of game progression, but if you do want to get some extra skins, you can look into maybe purchasing one of these. They cost Robux, so I know that's kind of a bummer, but like I said, nothing about this is required. They don't provide any advantage, so don't worry about this too much. And last but not least, on the top left here, we have some extra small buttons. This button here is just some extra essentials like your announcements, codes, and the tutorial. This button here shows your achievements for the game, which you will want to keep an eye on. This is also where you can see all the different maps in the game and which difficulties you beat each map on. This third button here is where you're going to see your daily and weekly quests. If you build up a streak of daily quests or a streak of weekly quests, you will receive increased rewards over time. And lastly, this is the settings button, where you can just have a few general settings and a bunch of different sound settings. Alright, now that we're done with the lobby, let's move into some more generalized tips. What game modes should you actually start playing in this game? TDX can have a lot of modes, and it might be a little bit overwhelming to figure out which one to start with or which ones to do. That's okay, because I'm here to tell you that first and foremost, start with the tutorial. And then you're like, oh my gosh, Vendetta, I don't want to do any tutorial. I want to skip the tutorial. Please do the tutorial if you're new to this game. There's going to be a lot of different mechanics that you're going to have to get used to, and the tutorial can explain that way better than I can. So if you just joined the game, it should offer the tutorial right on your screen. If you've already X'd out of it or you've already done it and you want to try it again, simply go up to this first button up here that we just talked about, and it's going to be this button right here. Click on that, and you just click play tutorial here. Boom, you're in. After you've done the tutorial, I highly recommend that you actually start with easy. Easy is, well, very easy. You can do it with the first tower you get in the game, and it actually gives pretty decent rewards for a new player, so you can just go into the party system here and select easy mode, just click start game, or you can actually just hop into one of these elevators over here with the tanks and just jump in and then select easy from there. Once you've gotten yourself a few more towers and are a little bit more comfortable with the game, I recommend you actually move on to the intermediate mode. Intermediate is also fairly easy, but it is definitely a step up from easy, so make sure you have a little bit more experience, make sure you have maybe a couple more towers before you have a crack at intermediate. These modes will help you get a general basis of what's going on in the game, and it's slow. You know, there's a narrator that teaches you different things, and he helps you along the way, so don't worry, you're not going to be completely stranded. And generally, this is the best way to kind of start learning the general way the game goes and learning the different mechanics. However, if you're wanting a little bit more gold, you're running a bit of an easier grind, or maybe you find the towers are a little too hard to get, well, I do have something in store for you, my friend. If you come over to that events tab that we talked about earlier, I highly recommend you try this Tower Battles game mode, because in all of these event game modes, and probably in all future event game modes as well, the events actually provide you with a free loadout. You can make a selection from like 3 or 4 different loadouts usually, and you can just pick one. Sometimes one's a VIP loadout, but you still have 3 other options to choose from. You can take a loadout that has 6 towers in it, just completely free to use. No need to purchase the towers yourself. You can just go in, use those towers, and have some fun. And at the same time, those game modes actually give away some very good rewards. So just stick to the normal modes in those events. You'll be doing great. Alright, so you've played some easy, you've played some intermediate, maybe you've had a try at some of the events, and then you've got yourself some gold. Well, what are you going to do with that gold? Of course, you're going to use it to purchase yourself some towers. Now, looking at this, there's a lot of towers in the game, so which ones should you buy as a beginner? Well, I'm here to give you my honest recommendations. First up is this guy here, the Operator. I highly, highly recommend you purchase this guy, as the beginner tower you get, the Ranger, is essentially a weaker version of this guy. He's just overall a very powerful unit that you can use, and it's going to be very, very good to have. My next recommended unit is the Missile Trooper. The Missile Trooper has a little bit of a different take on how damage is dealt, which I will get into that in just one moment. And he's got some big range, does some good damage. Overall, Missile Trooper is going to be very, very good. You might even use him a little later down the line than the rest of these units anyways, so perfect buy in my opinion. I highly, highly, highly recommend you buy the Barracks. I know the Barracks might be a little bit expensive, but trust, it is going to be so useful. The Barracks is so powerful, and it can solo intermediate with just the Barracks, so I highly recommend you purchase the Barracks. Next up, we've got debatably the best tower in the entire game is the EDJ. The EDJ doesn't deal any damage herself, but it is a very good support tower that can give fire rate, range, and discount buffs. This tower here is named John, which is sort of like a support tower, but at the same time, he's also got some very, very good cost efficiency, which just means that his upgrades are low cost and high effectiveness. So I highly recommend you purchase John. He's 4,500 gold, which is a lot, but it is going to be very, very worth it, believe me. And lastly, the hardest one to get out of all of these guys is the Jet Trooper. The Jet Trooper is actually amazing. This guy is so good, and he has a level lock of 25, which means you just have to be level 25 in order to be able to purchase this guy. But believe me, the Jet Trooper is very, very powerful. It's great for an early game tower in any game mode. Such a good tower. I highly recommend you purchase this guy when you can. Alright, so you've played the game a little bit. You've got yourself some towers. Now I just want to go over some of the core mechanics in case you just haven't played yet, or maybe you have forgotten, or maybe you haven't gotten to that part of the game yet. So a big mechanic in Tower Defense X is resistances. So there are different damage types in the game, like bullet, fire, explosive, laser, all kinds of different weapons that can be used, and sometimes enemies will resist a particular kind of damage. Say for example, my friend the Operator here. By default, he shoots a gun that has bullet damage, so if he shoots at an enemy that has bullet resistance, he's going to do significantly less damage depending on how much resistance they have. However, my boy Missile Trooper here fires rockets that deal explosive damage, so if the enemy has bullet resistance, Missile Trooper's not going to care, he won't be affected by that. I know that might sound like very complex, but trust me, it's a very, very simple system. It's easy to get a grasp of once you just play a few games and just play around with the resistances a little bit. Next up, I want to talk about the stealth and the air enemies. Sometimes enemies can be stealthed, and sometimes enemies can be flying in the air. Don't worry, all you have to do in order to counter that is, for stealth enemies, get a tower that has the stealth detection attribute, and equally as easy for flying enemies, get a tower that has the air detection attribute. Towers that don't have those attributes won't be able to shoot those respective enemies. Moving on, there is also the tower paths. You may have noticed that towers in this game have 2 paths. So the advantage of that is you essentially get 2 towers for the price of 1 slot. Have a look at each tower's paths and understand which one is better for which circumstances, and also remember that once you get a level 3 upgrade on one of the paths, you cannot go past level 2 on the other. So that kind of ties back into what I was saying before about coordinating your tower team well. Now there is 2 more mechanics that make the player experience a little bit more difficult, but in that same sense, it adds a little bit more of a challenge. The first one is line of sight. For example, if you place a tower behind a wall, like this right here, if I put a tower here, he couldn't see through this beam and shoot over here. Same as the resistances thing, I recommend you just play around with it, have some tests, just, mess around and see what happens when you do a tower placement. It's the easiest way to learn, is just to experience it yourself, so. And lastly, tower death. Your towers will have health starting in intermediate mode, and some bosses and enemies can deal damage to your towers. If their health reaches 0, they die, you don't get any of the value back. I know it's a little bit scary, but trust me, death for towers is not as bad as you think. Okay, and for my last big tip, I want to go over just some extra ways to earn some good gold, some good XP, and they're fairly easy ways as well. So going back to the achievements that I was talking about earlier, in here, you're definitely want to check on this tab as you play through TDX, just because, there's some free gold and free XP and even free crystals as well if you do some of these achievements. So definitely keep your eyes peeled on that. Going back to the quests here, you can see you get some decent rewards for gold and XP just by playing the game. So if you just have a little peek at what your quests are for the day or for the week, you can just kind of follow through. Like if it's to, deal a million damage with railgunners, for me, for example, I can just take railgunner to one of my games, and that should probably be enough. There are codes in this game. If you go up to this button right up here, you just click the codes button, and here we are, redeem codes. So there isn't very many codes active. I highly recommend you just check the Tower Defense X wiki for whichever ones are active currently, because if I give some now, eventually that will just be not true. They're going to be outdated. So just check the TDX wiki or the Tower Defense X Discord server. And last but certainly not least, one of the best ways to grind in this game is through medals. Medals are found here in the Achievements tab when you click on the Maps portion. This is what medals are. So you can see for each map here, there are 4 slots, and these represent the 4 core modes: easy, intermediate, elite, and expert. By completing a map on a difficulty you've never done before, such as me completing the Apocalypse map on intermediate difficulty, if I've never done that before, I would get a medal. When you earn a medal, you get the same amount of rewards you usually would, but you get an extra 80% in gold. It's highly recommended that you just come through and look at some of these maps and try and complete a lot of them on especially easy and intermediate difficulties, for new players especially. Once you get higher up and start beating elite and expert, you're going to want to farm some of the medals on those game modes as well. But for now, just stick to the easy and the intermediate medals. One last thing for extra gold is that you should also join the Tower Defense X group on ROBLOX, as it gives you a little bit of extra starting cash when you start a game. Anyways, that's going to be it. That's all the tips that I have for you. Overall, we just reviewed how the lobby UI works. We reviewed which modes you should probably start playing. We gave you some tower suggestions in order to work towards. I did a little bit of an overview on the core mechanics in this game. I know they might have been a little bit overwhelming, but like I said, just play the game, have a little experience yourself. Maybe if you have a friend who's played before, they can help you learn as well. And don't forget some of the extra ways to help you progress through, such as quests and achievements, medals, codes, all that good stuff. So I do hope at least someone found this video useful. Remember, this video is particularly for people who are very new to Tower Defense X and aren't very high a level yet. And like I said, I know this game can probably seem a little bit overwhelming, and it can be. There's a lot to do, there's a lot going on, but trust me, as you experience this game, it's going to be amazing. This game is actually just one of my favorites of all time. I love TDX so much. It's such a blast to play, so I do hope that someone found this useful, and I will catch you guys all next time. Do stay tuned for that mid-game sort of tips and tricks video, along with the end game one for players who are just getting to the end of the progression line. If you're a higher level than the level 30 requirement here, then there'll be some tips later on for you in those videos. But for now, that's going to be it. Thank you all so much for watching. My name is Vendetta. We'll catch you next time here on the TDX channel. Bye-bye!